Hello, welcome to Your Academy. At Your Academy today, we'll deal with W H Auden's poem, The Unknown Citizen. The Unknown Citizen is a very famous poem by W H Auden. I won't be dealing with the life or literary life of W H Auden in this poem. We'll deal with him in another lecture. This poem will be particularly dedicated to the unknown citizen. But as is necessary for the context of the work or context of the poem, we should know little bit about W H Auden. W H Auden is a modern poet. He is a British as well as an American poet. He lived in Britain and then he migrated to US later on. And this poem in 1939 was written in US, in America rather than in England. And this poem was written in 1939. It was first published in the New Yorker and later it was published in a book in 1940 another time. In order to understand this poem, we have to look at the context of this poem, which is necessary, I think, for any work or any poem which you want to understand. This poem, though written in modern era, I will not say that this was written in postmodern era. It was written in 1939, and you will read some books which will suggest that postmodernism began in 1940. Though the themes of this poem are very much postmodern. They highlight some of the issues of the modern world, but they are predominantly postmodern. And a student who lives in the modern contemporary era, in the postmodern era, can easily relate to the poem The Unknown Citizen. The title of this poem is ironical. This says unknown citizens, but once you go through this poem, you will find that this is not an unknown citizen. Most of the details of this citizen are known to the public, are known to everyone. Even when we'll read this poem, you will realize that we know almost everything about this citizen. Then how is this citizen unknown? So this word unknown becomes very important in understanding this particular poem. And to unearth this irony of unknown, you will have to realize or read this poem in context of the postmodern society as well as in context of the capitalist society. Therefore, in order to understand this poem from postmodern perspective, we need to understand certain informations or certain fundamentals of postmodernism. If you don't know about postmodernism, you can refer to the lectures about postmodernism on Your Academy. There is a link at the top of this video which is given about postmodernism, and an important aspect of postmodernity, if you want to know in relation to this particular poem, watch the lecture on Lyotard's The Postmodern Condition, a Report on Knowledge. In that context, we can understand this poem better. And the other important context to this poem would be Marxism. Because if this poem is capitalist in nature, if you can understand this poem from capitalist lens, then in order to understand capitalism or shortcomings of capitalism, understanding Marxism is important. So you can refer to the lectures on Marxism also on Your Academy, Introduction to Marxism, that pops up at the top of this video, and also about the ideology, which is a fundamental aspect of this poem also, though it does not talk directly about ideology, but I'll show you the relationship between ideology and this particular poem. And you can again refer to the lectures about ideology or theory of ideology by Louis Althusser, and the link is there at the top of this video. Now, coming to the context of the poem, as why did W H Auden write a poem Unknown Citizen? And here, one of the context of this poem is that during his times, since this poem was written in 1939, so you will roughly count, or even that's exact 21 years after the First World War, which came to an end in 1918, and in the same very year when the Second World War broke out, that is 1939. And during those times when these two bloody wars broke out in the world, few practices were very common in the West, and one of that practice was, making monuments of unknown soldiers. There you would find many places, in England, in America, where state would erect monuments for the unknown soldiers. And based on this idea of unknown soldier, because the unknown soldier was not a strange commodity perhaps then in those times, because this World War One and Two had shed so much of a blood of the soldiers, and so many soldiers were killed. It could have been difficult for the state to keep record of all those soldiers. So anyone referred to as soldier, and we don't know a lot of details about him, and his monument is erected, no background of his, no name of his, no details of his, so we erect a monument about him. But the poem which W H Auden wrote, The Unknown Citizen, though gets the idea of this unknown from this particular perspective or this particular activity, but the context is entirely different when it comes to the W H Auden. Because here, state is not, making monuments of unknown citizens because of the scarcity of details. Rather, they are, pushing the citizens to a state where they are ambiguous, where they are unknown, or where their identity is put in danger. And why does state do such a thing, that they push the citizens to a state of ambiguity? That is because of capitalism, and that is because of theory, that is because of ideology. Capitalism, if you know Marxism, Marxism tells you what capitalism does is, it commodifies the people or the workers. For example, about the concept of hands. In Marxism, the workers are alienated. They are merely hands, as Charles Dickens would refer to them. Now, when we refer to a person who is working in a factory as hand, what are we doing? We are making him unknown, because we do not want to reveal his identity, his name, his other things. That is an aspect of capitalism, that they create alienation in the society, or they commodify the people, where their real essence, real existence is not known. But what we know is material existence. And if we know material existence of a person and do not know anything about his real existence, then that person is an unknown entity. And when capitalism flourished, the best practice of capitalism was to keep citizens unknown. The unknown is their real part. The material part is known. Therefore, this poem has irony in it. The name of the person is not known. The real existence of the person is not known, but about his material existence, which is important for state, which is important for capitalism, is known to you. So, in postmodern society, W H Auden visioned a state, a scenario wherein an individual's material existence will be known, but his real existence will not be known. Therefore, most of the citizens in advanced capitalist societies would be unknown. The other important issue that this poem looks at, and at which context you will have to read this poem, would be the issue of privacy. The issue of privacy dominated the American culture, particularly after 1970s and in 80s and 90s. And even, in contemporary times, the issue of privacy is an important aspect of their lives. Why did it come up after 1970s? It was because of the invention of computer. Later CCTVs were invented, and then there were other forms of these softwares which were invented, or some hardwares which were invented. For example, the gadgets like mobile phone was invented, and the applications like Facebook was created, and later now we have biometric attendance. Now we have Aadhaar cards. Now we have other things. All these things led to the breach of privacy. And postmodernism is about all these things, about the loss of privacy. we have got no privacy of our own. If you own a mobile phone, if you have a Facebook account, if you have Twitter, Insta, or any other application, if you use any of these tools, and above all, if you use internet, then make sure that your privacy is compromised. Initially, the threat of privacy was not that much. The invading of privacy was not that much. And we people, since we live in this capitalist society, and Louis Althusser would tell you that why are people exploited, or why do we let the government, the ruling party, to have all our information? You will have to watch the lecture on ISA, the link there at the top of this video. And through ISA, Louis Althusser tells you and me how we consent to the ruling party that yes, you can take any information of ours. We have got no problem with it. And eventually, we end up being in a state where we are not free. And this poem will also tell you about the idea of freedom in the postmodern society. This freedom in postmodern society is not actually freedom. It's an ironical word. Like in postmodern society, we have truth as an ironical word, we have God as an ironical word, we have morals as an ironical word. You speak about God, people start laughing on this word. You talk about truth, they would laugh. What is truth? What is reality? They laugh about reality. You are in hyper-real zone. Similarly, we have been pushed to a state where even freedom would be law. And W H Auden asked this question in 1939. Was he free? Was he happy? The question is answered. So this poem must be understood in context of the issue of privacy, in context of this capitalism commodifying the human beings, and in context of information from postmodern perspective. When it comes to the information, Lyotard would tell you about knowledge. You can watch the lecture. We have a lecture on Lyotard also at your academy. There is a lot of stuff that you can watch at your academy. If you want to understand this poem in context, you can go to those videos which we have referred, and we have given link at the top, so that this lecture would be easy to understand. And you will be able to relate this poem to the contemporary time. So Lyotard would tell you that the most powerful nation in postmodern society would be those who have enough information about the individual. So in postmodern world, it was about the war of information. So what states are actually doing, they are collecting our information, our material information. So they don't need our emotional information, because they will teach you about totalitarianism. They would teach you about profit-driven individuals. If you are profitable for the state, you are good. You may be in depression, that's not a problem. But as long as you are contributing to the economy, you are worth a citizen. There could be n number of problems in your real life, your emotional life, your family life. These are not the concern of the capitalist. The only concern of the capitalist is how many products would you produce, what quality products would you produce. So in that case, you are unknown. Your real existence is unknown, but your material existence is pretty known. And when it comes to your material existence, all your privacies are compromised. So that is the context in which we'll have to understand this poem, The Unknown Citizen. Now I hope that you have got some idea that what this text is coming up. I'll just sum it up. This poem is about privacy. This poem is about surveillance. This poem is about collecting information of the individuals, and this poem is about commodifying the citizens, is about making citizens' real existence unknown, and is about making their material existence known. Now, in this context, we'll read the poem Unknown Citizen. And I hope that if you have understood this context, understanding the poem would be fairly easy.